Well, it's a tricky time of year, and sometimes with having just gotten through Christmas and all of the financial pressure that was there, a lot of times with the social responsibilities and activities, sometimes with the weather, this can be a tricky time for people, and sometimes we've got a spouse who's struggling in this time, and we're going to talk about that, how to help a struggling spouse. Welcome to Marriage Monthly. We're Gabe and Melissa Kolstad, and we want to help you build a healthy, lifelong marriage. We get together every single month with a podcast designed to just give you practical tips to help you grow in your marriage, and we can't wait to spend some time with you. So we're going to share some things today that we hope will make a difference, and there's other things that could come into place too, because sometimes we go through seasons, no matter what time of year it is, job changes.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Health
changes,
health is
huge. Personal crisis. Things that happen in life, and it can affect a spouse, and we got to know, how do we be helpful to them in that time? Because you obviously care a lot about them, but we don't always know what to do.
But don't you think, like, sometimes it can be literally like a sad day, a sad week, but there are struggling spouses that have been sad years.
Yeah.
How do you hang on?
Well, and we did commit, right, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, for richer or
you're
poorer.
Like,
so
okay, are they going to get over this eventually?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we're going to talk about that, but Ephesians chapter 4, verse 2 says this, says, be completely humble and gentle, be patient, bearing with one another in love. And that idea of bearing with one another is that you're really assisting. You're kind of lifting the load with them. And that's the idea that Paul wants us to take into marriage, I think, of that we're partners, right? We partnered up in this thing. So we're going to share 10 things. You're going to hit the first 5, and I'll hit the last 5.
I was thinking about this when we were watching a movie the other day, though. What was that movie? We were sick for a solid 9 or 10 days.
Talk about bear with each other, right?
So we watched, I swear to you, 30
Everything
movies.
on Netflix. We've seen it.
Yeah, we've seen all the series, all the movies at any rate. But one of the movies we watched, and I don't remember what it was talking about this whole, like, you know how marriage they say is, it's 50-50, right? And we're always like, no, it's 100-100. You always got to give 100% on both sides. But he was saying in the movie that sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 40-60. And I got the point of that, and it made me think of the struggling spouse. Because sometimes if I am really, really sick, or Gabe is really, really sick, we're not holding our
100%.
Right. We're not holding our end of the bargain on anything. Like, I'm not getting laundry done. I'm barely cooking. I'm like, just go to Taco Bell. I'm not doing it, And so it's like, you do have to kind of like, not try to level things out. You got to be like, no, I'll do whatever it takes because you are really struggling right now. And so I think thinking about that, I never think you should do that, because 1 Corinthians talks about never recording, recording like wrongs and trying to always make things even, and that doesn't work. But there are times that you're going to have to give more than your spouse, when your spouse is struggling. So anyways, there's 10 of these, and I'm going to go through the first 5. So number 1, listen and understand. And I know that sounds so much easier than it is, because we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah.
And there's a scripture that talks about that. And I just think a lot of times it's when your spouse is struggling, instead of having all the answers and fixing it, you just got to kind of be quiet sometimes and just listen to the struggle. And that's really hard. I'm more of a fix-it person. So if someone comes to me and wants to like unload, I'm like, how are we going to fix this? Like, what are we going to do? Like, what's our steps? Like, that's just how I roll. So for me,
you're an exhorter by
I'm an exhorter by nature.
Gifting too, yeah.
So for me, it's really, really hard to just sit there and let them unload and listen. But sometimes that's where you need to be. Listen and understand. I think it's one thing to listen. It's another just be like in agreement. I understand. You feel like crap. You feel like laying in bed all day long. You are sad. You are, or whatever it may be,
Yeah, because understand doesn't mean agree necessarily. That's not part of the job there.
Yeah.
Right? To have to agree with everything that's said.
No. And I mean, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like, get over it. Stop being depressed. That kind of thing. You can't say that, though. Right. You can't say that. That'll just spiral into something else.
At some point, it's going to be everybody's turn to go through something hard.
Oh, that's such a good point.
You're going to want the understanding.
Yep. Yeah. So being a safe place means allowing them to share frustrations, fears, tears without judgment and immediate advice, which I think is one of the hardest parts. Especially guys are very much like advice. Let me help you out of this, babe. I'm gonna help. And it's it's normal. Like we want to bring our spouse out of sadness or depression or sickness, especially if they're like sick, and you can't do anything but maybe assist at a doctor appointment. I mean, there's really a lot of times there's nothing you can do except for listen and understand. So we're going to go through a few more of these things, but imagine your spouse as a full teapot that needs to let off some steam. The worst thing you can do is put a lid on it and say, stop boiling. Let them pour out their feelings. Let them express themselves while you gently hold the cup. No interruptions, no corrections, which is really, really hard. So first one, listen and understand. Be that safe place, empathy, acceptance. We have to do that. Number 2 is give consistent encouragement. And what I was thinking about when I was thinking of this was, I have the gift of encouragement, so it's easy for me to see something in someone and say, you're killing this, you're doing a great job, I'm so proud of you. Those are normal words for me. But I think when you have a spouse that's struggling, validation, I think, is a huge thing. Even more like a step past encouragement, like you're doing a good job, I'm proud of you, honey. But validation saying, you know what, you've done enough today. You're good. Just sit on the couch. It's okay. Like validating.
Oh, I never thought about it like that. That's
good. Because like for me, I just feel like a lot of times when I know several women that have just been almost bedridden where they cannot function. It's either depression, anxiety, it's health, it's back issues. There's a million different things. And they feel so almost worthless because they can't keep up with what they normally do, and they just feel so unworthy. And so for me, I was just thinking about encouraging them and validating them. You know what? You're doing a great job. You're doing all you need to do. It's okay, So, be real specific in that. I think that's helpful. Not just like, hang in there, you got this, babe. Be a little bit more, acknowledge, validation, acknowledging maybe the reason they're feeling the way they are. It's okay that you feel like this, or I'm sorry you got, that the doctor said this and this is how it's going to go, whatever it may be, let's work through this, and don't let them have shame. I think sometimes they feel shameful. So anyways, imagine your spouse as a smartphone, and each word of encouragement is a recharge.
Yeah.
Right. And so without it, they're feeling drained. And so if you have a spouse that's struggling, they already feel drained. They are already exhausted and not feeling great at all. So giving them some validation and some encouragement is going to kind of recharge them. Maybe not as much as you want. So don't get your hopes up about that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it is going to make a difference, and it is going to make them feel better. Number 3, make sure your tank is full. This is really, really important. If you have a spouse that is struggling, I think it's really, really important to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to feel full.
Yeah.
Whether that is going out with the guys, going out with the girls, just go blow off some steam, go hang out, go bowling. I don't care. Go throw axes. That's fun.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
That's fun.
I've done that.
Go shopping with your girlfriends. Go look for a new outfit. Oh, that always makes me feel better. Just go get a foot massage. That's my thing. I love it. Love it. But a lot of times it's, get in the word, maybe pray or pray with somebody. I am exercise. That's how I blow off my steam. So I think it's huge. Even if you don't feel good, and some of you are going to hate me for this, even if you don't feel good or you're depressed or you're having anxiety, go on a walk.
Oh,
go to the gym.
So helpful to go on a walk. I
just
love that.
Get some fresh air. Walk outside for 10 minutes and just breathe. Sometimes when I'm feeling cooped up, like when we were sick this last week, and then a couple days ago we went on this walk, I felt so much better. I was like, oh,
when the sun was out.
The sun was out, and you're like, do you smell that?
Yeah.
Fresh air, you're like, oh, it's magical. So anyways, I think, maybe it's journaling. A lot of people love to, you're a journaler. So you're just like, let me express myself and write this stuff down. I feel so much better after I do that. Another one would be maybe even therapy. Maybe you need to go to the counselor every week. If you are really, really struggling and your spouse is like, I have done everything I can do. Like, I can't, I don't know what to do. Maybe it's time that you go to a therapist and just spend an hour a week or, 2 hours a month. Go talk to somebody, a safe place that you can just vent and just be like, man, I don't know why I can't handle life right now. And that's okay too, right? But do stuff for yourself. Make sure that you're feeling full when you're giving out all the time to a spouse that's struggling, because it can be extremely draining. I know that my godmom has walked through 3 people now where she took care of them until they died.
One of them, her spouse.
One of them was her spouse 6 years ago this month. And it's one of those things like when that season is done, she goes in a full-on depression and exhaustion because you're giving and giving and giving, and it can just tank you. So you got to really, really be proactive and like go have some coffee, go do something. Don't drink though. That's not a good idea. Don't drink to blow off some steam. Don't do that.
That's a good point here. Is if it's about taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so finding things that are constructive that fill your tank, because doing something that's going to turn into a negative habit, that's not going to help anybody.
Exactly.
So I think the point is be at your best for your spouse. Know when your limit is, because like maybe you're talking about their percentage on the battery on the charge, but we got to watch our own too. You get down to 10-11%, it's like, oh, that's you got to have a line where you're going to go, oh, I got to stop and refill. I
mean, and if you need to relax, just like to take it all in, I'm just going to say don't smoke weed or drink or any of that stuff, because that's going to cause more problems. I can guarantee it. I 100% guaranteed. I've watched it happen. Don't go that route to relax. Get in the Word, get with a friend, go do something productive, serve, go somewhere and pour into somebody else that's maybe not your spouse. Maybe like, let me give you some mashed potatoes and gravy at the city team's thing, whatever it may be. But do something constructive to fill up your tank, not something destructive. I think that's a hard thing to balance. A lot of people want to blow off steam by saying, I'm so exhausted from my spouse and I'm drained, so I'm just going to go get drunk.
Right.
And that's what they do on TV and movies to release. That's not a godly way to do it. That's not the right way to do it at all. It reminded me of the oxygen mask, right?
Yeah.
Like you need to put yours on first when you're in stress and then help your spouse. So make sure you're doing that. So number 4, take something off of their plate. This is huge because I know like when your spouse isn't feeling good and they can't keep up with the normal routines, like say I cook dinner every day, I do the grocery shopping, I do the laundry generally all the time. If Gabe comes home and I'm just on the couch and I don't have energy to do it, he's like, I got this, babe. And he'll go make me some crepes. And that's cool with me.
My one trick. I'm a one-trick pony.
Yep, he makes me crepes. And I like crepes, so we're okay with that. But taking something off your spouse's plate, I think, is huge when they're really struggling.
Yeah.
Because they're frustrated, more frustrated than you, that they can't keep up. And so I think that's important. So maybe, running errands for them, prepping a meal, handling the bills, maybe making a phone call that they're dreading, that kind of thing. So, but just remind them that they don't have to do all of it on their own when they're struggling, And again, you guys, this can go on for longer than a day. This can go on for a while. So you're going to have to be patient with this and have some grace and then just keep going.
Yeah.
If life is a backpack filled with weights, simply remove one item from the backpack. Even a small relief can make a huge difference, right? Yeah, and then my last one before we go to yours is show appreciation every single day. And this is really, really a grateful heart is going to go a long ways. So when you're struggling because your spouse is struggling, and that is a true struggle, it's like, oh my goodness, when Gabe hurts, I hurt, when my kids hurt, I hurt, it's just a thing, and that's just how it is. And so just remembering, having a grateful attitude, thank you, God, for the home I live in. Thank you, God, for the hot tub I can chill in. Thank you, God, for the food that I have. Thank you for the clothes that I have, the friends that I have, the church I can go to, the Bible I can read, and always keeping a list of the things that you were so grateful for, because your mind can get pulled into the negative so easily when your spouse is struggling and you're only thinking about what's lacking. And I think it's really, really important to think about what's not lacking. There's so many good things happening in your life, even if your spouse is struggling. There's so many things, and encouraging your spouse with what's positive, what are we grateful for, babe? And trying to interject that as a couple, be like, man, there's so many things to be grateful for. So many, we are breathing. And so I think that's really important. It can change an entire mood when you encourage each other and appreciate each other. You are doing a great job here. I am so thankful for you. When Gabe mows the lawn, and I'm like, look at that lawn. That's gorgeous. I don't want to do it, so I'm glad that he does it, or anything like that. It's like, show that appreciation. I'm so, so thankful for you and all you do at our home. And I couldn't do it without you. And so I'm so appreciative. So show appreciation every single solitary day, even if it's verbal. Maybe write a note. That's even the best kind, is when you find a little note that says
little surprises.
Yeah. I'll put lipstick on the mirror sometimes that says "I love you" or a kiss or something like that. Just kind of shows some love. And then the small act of service, I think, is always appreciated. So yeah, show appreciation every single solitary day. A little bit of watering that plant, keep your grass green, right? All right, your turn.
Very good. Love it. Thanks, babe. All right, number 6 is, this is tricky because all of this is tricky because when your spouse is struggling, I think one of the things that happens is you care a lot about them, so you're also a little bit struggling with it.
Yeah.
And I think also we just don't always know what to do. But number 6 on this is to respect their pace. Respect their pace, because we all have a pace, and we all have different paces for different things. You know, some of us are fast at one thing but slow at another. We are really good at one thing but not as great at another thing. So trying to not compare how I would handle the struggle that my spouse is going through.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about. I'm not the one going through it, in that case. So,
Yeah.
Everyone processes stress or grief differently. Some people need time and space. Others want to talk it out immediately. So what's their style? What's their pace? But by respecting their pace, you signal that you care about their comfort and emotional well-being rather than rushing them to move on. And that can be a real temptation because sometimes it's like, this is uncomfortable, let's just get through it.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Moving on.
You slowed us down.
Yeah.
Or this struggle slowed us down.
Yeah.
But, it's like reading a book at your own speed. Trying to force someone else to read faster isn't going to help them understand their story.
Yeah.
And this is, God allows things in our lives as a way of teaching us something, as a way of, strengthening us. I realized the other day in our very, very frustrating sickness that, honestly, I was so frustrated with that because I was like, of all the times. But actually, on reflection, it was the perfect time for us to get sick because one thing it did is it slowed me down personally enough to think about a couple things that I needed to think about. And so I was able to enter the new year a little more intentionally, even though I didn't like it. It was really a frustration, but the pace was the pace, and you can't change it. So,
and we missed the New Year's Eve party.
Oh, we missed a lot of stuff,
which was like 15 years of New Year's Eve parties, and we were at home
broke our
sick.
streak.
I know.
It was a bummer.
So sad.
But respect their pace, give them some space. And I think it's about kind of having that grace-filled attitude. And they can read your body language and they can read your tone of voice, So I think it's not just about pretending that you respect their pace, but it's about really going, okay, you got to release control of that, release control of how fast is this going to go. And just embrace that you get to be their support. It's like it's a privilege.
And slow down with them. Because if you're still going a million miles an hour and they're feeling left behind, that's just even more frustrating.
Yeah, make them feel guilty.
Yep.
Yeah. 7 in the list of ways we can help our struggling spouse is to celebrate small wins. And that's really, really important. I think it's in some ways similar to some of the encouragement stuff you talked about. But, recognizing small steps like getting out of bed on a tough day. That's important.
Yeah.
Making an important phone call or practicing a new habit. I hurt my back a while back, and it took me forever to. I was actually scared to go back to the gym because I remembered what it felt like, and I was really scared. You've always been the kind of person that gives me a high five, sort of, if I take that right step, and so I remember that the days when I would make the effort and take the risk in my mind, a risk. And then you're like, good job. I like to see that. And, that stuff really does go a long ways. Small celebrations can help your spouse see that improvements are happening, even if it's not dramatic, right? And, it's like a toddler learning to walk. Every step is a victory. And I think that's important for our spouse to go, we got to be careful how we do this. Like, oh, good job. You took a tiny little step. We got to be careful. We're not going to be demeaning in this. But celebrating small wins is a big deal. And
thanks for dinner tonight, babe. That I know that was probably made you really tired, but awesome.
Yeah, the way to go. Even sometimes just the simple acknowledgement that something happened is really important.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. 8 is check in regularly. And that's just consistency and checking in, that we would say, hey, how are you doing today? How are you feeling today? I think you got to know your spouse's personality.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to be real careful here.
Because, like, I know Melissa would feel like I'm fine. Stop asking. Don't ask me 3 times a day or 5 times a day how I'm doing.
I do not like to be overly nurtured.
Right.
I will just say that.
Yeah, but I think if you wouldn't want the opposite either. You don't want to be neglected either.
Right. Of course.
And I think sometimes you just got to know your spouse's style. Like, what kind of check-in would they want? Melissa's kind of check-in. She wants a chocolate chip cookie.
Right. It's not always verbal for me.
Yeah.
It's not verbal for me.
Mm-hmm.
A check-in for me is more like, yes, I got you C's candy, and you're killing it,
Could
and
be
I love
a quick
you.
Back rub, right?
Yeah,
just
something like that.
Just a little kind of acknowledgement.
But too much of, how are you doing? I'm going to be like, I'm fine. Please stop.
Absolutely. So you gotta know the style, but still,
yes.
How are you feeling about everything today? Is there anything new on your mind? These are questions we could throw
That's
in
not
there.
bad. Yeah.
So it's like tending a garden. Frequent but gentle attention is what helps things grow. Regular check-ins are watering your spouse. And the watering that your spouse needs to stay emotionally healthy. So I kind of find it's just like the word presence, I think, has been for me one of those ones I'm leaning into this year. Being present in relationships, present in moments, and I think present to notice how's my spouse doing, and just give that little touch of a check-in in their style, I think is really important.
Yeah.
Number 9, encourage their passions or hobbies. Okay, so let's say you got a spouse that's been struggling with their health for a while. And, it's not, health is one of those really, man, it just takes you down really fast because you almost feel like you're not sure it's going to end.
Yeah.
And I think people's passion can get really zapped in that. Their hobbies, things that they like to do, sometimes they don't have the energy to do it. And if you're dealing with depression, sometimes you just don't have the energy to do the thing that you wanted to do. And especially if there's not a desire there, so how do you, go back and encourage their passions and hobbies? Personal interests can lift a spouse's mood and remind them that there's more to life than their current struggle. And so, like you mentioned, there's certain things that I like. We love traveling. And when you're struggling, you got to do things a little differently, but you could still go, hey, let's go see something new today.
Yeah.
Let's or you could watch a movie. Like, we like to watch movies or shows about the places that we want to go visit, So it makes you kind of scratches the same itch, right?
Another thing I was thinking of is if your spouse is a knitter, go get them some knitting tools and some yarn stuff.
Great.
Let them do that. Or I know this is a huge thing right now is adult coloring books. If your spouse likes to just chill and wants to just color, that's cool too. Embrace that and be like, I got you a new coloring book. I know it sounds like it's 5-year-old, but there's a really beautiful adult coloring books. And my nieces and my sister-in-law loves adult coloring books. And when I say adult, it sounds kind of dirty. I don't mean dirty coloring books.
No, I got
I mean
you.
Complicated,
for grown-ups.
Yes, okay.
For people of a certain age.
I just realized that sounded kind of weird.
Yeah, no, I
anyways,
think we got it.
Yes, but something like that. What are they interested in? And bring that to them and nurture that.
Go do it with them.
Yeah.
If they're struggling, sometimes they're gonna feel guilty probably for. If you spend money on, it's just we're tricky people, and when we're struggling, we can be very easily guilted. We can be very easily shamed. So I think it's important just to go hey, let's go have some fun. Let's do this thing.
And it could be outside or inside the house because if you're struggling, if you're struggling with depression or something, you don't really have the energy to leave.
Right.
So can we get something to do at home that's interesting and neat and maybe artsy or fun or a word scrambles or a board game or something where you're using your brain and interacting together possibly, but not always going out. Because if you're really, really struggling, if your health is very terrible, then you got to figure out what to do at home.
Yeah.
That's going to nurture what you love to do. That could give you a little spark for the day,
Yeah.
So
that's a good way to say it. I think that's what we're looking for in those times. Is just some kind of spark, something to kind of help you get through the day. Look forward to. The last one is have faith. That things will get better.
Yes.
Super important.
Oh my goodness.
Just to maintain that faith. So they say sometimes when you can't say your own yes, you have to borrow someone else's. And I think that's really where this comes into play is to go, I might not believe that I'm getting any better, but if my spouse sees it and tells me, then I'd be like, oh, okay, because sometimes I don't notice my own progress,
Yeah,
I might not believe that the next doctor appointment's going to be any different than the last one, you know.
Yeah.
But if they're encouraging, if they're lifting me up, life's challenges often come in seasons, and believing in a future breakthrough or trusting in God's power can ease your despair. And I think that, part of this, have faith that things will get better, is about seasons, because no season lasts forever.
No.
If you're struggling because of your load at work, it's gonna pass. If you're struggling because you don't have a job, you're gonna find a job.
Teenagers at home,
right?
There's different struggles at different times.
There's gonna be, the sun is gonna come up tomorrow.
Yes.
And I think that just helping our spouse to see that, maybe even to point back to when God has come through. I think that's one of my favorite ways to do this, is to go, okay, well, when was I struggling before, and how did God come through? And just being that cheerleader, being that reminder, being that positive voice, the voice of hope.
And carrying through the seasons.
Yeah.
Because we've been married almost 30 years. We have gone through a lot of seasons, and you just got to carry through the seasons, the hard ones, the great ones, just keep going through. And then you look back the last 30 years, we've had an absolute blast, but it hasn't always been easy.
Right.
I think one of the overarching things of this whole list of 10 is if your spouse is struggling, to pray for them. Mm-hmm. Make sure and just constantly be lifting them up to the Lord and pray that He would provide a breakthrough, and say that in front of them, and say that, to other people, and get other people praying for them, and really, really continue to lift them up to the Lord so they can find some healing or some break or whatever needs to happen for them, breakthrough. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, we hope that you are somebody that can take this to heart, and all of us are going to go through some hard time. It might be you that's the struggling one, it might be your spouse, but hopefully these words can be helpful. And we want to encourage you to stay with it, to make sure that you're a person who's digging into community, that you are a person who can lean into God and lean into God's word, as Melissa said, lean into prayer, and God's going to get us all through this.
Thank you for joining us today. Remember to share and subscribe, and join us every single month. This is your counseling session.